Hi and welcome to Points 2. This is the UB channel. Today we're going to be discussing UB53 all the way down to UB67. So UB53 is 3 Sune lateral to the midline, level with the spinous process of the second sacral vertebrae. So just remember how to find that 3 Sune. It's from the center of the spine to the edge of the scapula. That gives us our 3 Sune all the way down. Then we're going to correlate that 3 Sune to the second sacral vertebrae. It benefits the lumbar region, activates the channel, and alleviates pain. Regulates the lower jiao and benefits urination. So whenever you see this term that says activates the channel and alleviates pain, that is a aha moment. The aha moment is this. Any point that has activates the channel and alleviates pain tells us that that point can be used in a tendomuscular scenario or treatment or a low channel treatment. Okay, so don't just easily dismiss the activates the channel and alleviates pain part of it. Regulates the lower jiao and benefits urination. This happens because of the location aspect. The location is really close to the cauda equina. The cauda equina is the horse's tail, that set of nerves that exits the sacrum and kind of just spills over this tissue. Whenever you needle into that, you're sending a very positive message through the cauda equina to the spine up into the brain. So this is a very strong point to help re-educate the body if there's any urination issues. UB54. On the butt, any depression 3 Sune lateral to the sacral coccygeal hiatus. Benefits the lumbar region, activates the channel and alleviates pain, regulates urination, so it's identical to 53, but then we're going to add something else on top of it, which is it also treats hemorrhoids. Again, the same mechanism here. Same mechanism. It's the cauda equina nerve bundle that comes out of the sacrum. Okay. And if you look over under the indications, it says swelling around the external genitalia. That could be something from trauma. It could be something as crazy as an STD, any of that kind of scenario. 55. So now we're going to jump from the low back area and the glute region all the way back past the popliteal fossa, which is UB40, to this next set. So the next one is 55. 55 is on the lower leg, 2 Sune inferior to UB40, on the line connecting UB40 and UB57, in a depression between the two heads of the gastrocnemius. Activates the channel and alleviates pain, stops uterine bleeding, and treats pain of the genitals. So by itself, it has the ability to stop uterine bleeding and treats pain of the genitals. But whenever you combine 55 with spleen 1, it definitely, when you combine the spleen 1, it will definitely fully stop uterine bleeding. Okay? 56. On the lower leg, 5 Sune below UB40, midway between UB55 and 57, in the center of the belly of the gastrocnemius. So from the back of the knee crease, the popliteal fossa, which is UB40, all the way down to the highest point of the lateral malleolus is 16 Sune. Right? So now we're 5 Sune below UB40. Relaxes the sinews, activates the channel, alleviates pain, benefits the foot and heel. So when you look over here in the indications, you see this very interesting little segue, spasms of the gastrocnemius. Does anyone know what the #1 cause of a calf spasm or calf cramp is? Yeah, you're right. It's dehydration, right? Dehydration. The minute you start to get a little bit dehydrated, the first thing that happens is you have that spasm of the gastrocnemius or the calf muscle. So let's take that idea a step further. Bottled water. This is going to be a short little rant, I apologize. Bottled water is this whole thing that we've created, and what we actually do with bottled water is we run it through a filtration system that removes, it's basically a reverse osmosis system. It removes all the good in the water, all the natural minerals and everything, and then we replace that with inferior quantities of those minerals for taste. And then we extend the shelf life by adding a talc additive and a really low quality magnesium to give it that shelf life. Water should have an expiration date on it. And we've gotten around that by adding chemicals to the drinking water that you're buying from Costco or the store, whatever you're doing. So I grew up in the high desert, which is Barstow. On a good day during the summer, it's anywhere between 114 to 120. It's very common for us to get dehydrated, extremely common. But now we're seeing dehydration still happen even though we're drinking bottled water. So please be aware with that, and anyone that is drinking a lot of bottled water, I would guide you to the only good source of bottled water here in San Diego, which is Palomar. Palomar is the last artesian well up in Carlsbad, which they bring the water from. In fact, Palomar Water sells so much of their water to Arrowhead, Sparklets, and a bunch of other brands where they remove the good, healthy stuff and add this stuff that we're talking about. So please be aware of that. 57. 57 is exactly the halfway point. It's 8 below UB40 or 8 above UB60. Relaxes the sinews, activates the channel, alleviates pain, benefits the calf and heel, and again, treats hemorrhoids. Then it has this other little side thing that I want to bring to your attention. Berry. Berry, there's only a couple points that actually treat berry. This is one of the 2 points. Berry is a vitamin B deficiency. It's not so common in America anymore because we began to fortify our grains and breads with the B vitamins, which is why we don't have a high instance of berry. However, you want to circle this because I guarantee either on boards or nationals, someone's going to ask you, this point treats berry. And you gotta remember, oh, it's UB57. It's such a random little thing that they love to ask you questions about. 58. 58 is on the lower leg, 7 soon directly superior to UB60, lateral to and approximately 1 soon inferior to 57. So this is actually the low point. And as you can see, the low point always kind of jogs off a little bit, so it's not a straight line, right? So the lows always happen where there's not a straight line in the channel. 58 is the low point of the UB. Harmonizes the upper and lower. Expels winds from the Tai-Yang channel. Treats hemorrhoids, activates the channel, alleviates pain. What they mean by harmonizes the upper and lower is this. Sometimes we get excess above, and so we get this nice little round Buddha belly. And then we have deficiency below the waist, and so that is how we describe somebody who has a pear-shaped upper body with little stick legs. They have a upper excess and a deficiency below. So we need to harmonize the chi and blood through the girdle or daimai, right, to equalize it, to do away with the excess and give that some of that excess back to the deficiency below the waist. Okay. The other part that's kind of important to realize is this 58 taking flight expels wind from the Tai-Yang channel. Tai-Yang is the SI and the UB. So if there's wind anywhere in that channel, we can use this point to either pull out wind or push wind out of the SI or the UB. Which brings us to 59. 59 is 3 soon up from UB60. UB60 is found if you find the high point of the lateral malleolus and go straight over, that's where it is. And then you'll go 3 soon up, that's 59. Benefits the lumbar region and legs, activates the channel, and alleviates pain. So this is one of the best points for that heavy sensation of the head, or heavy sensation followed by a very, very dull, slow headache. Okay, that heavy sensation. The heavy sensation is actually damp. So we're going to alleviate that by activating the channel and alleviating pain. This other little thing off to the side here that says redness and swelling of the external malleolus is something very interesting. That's usually denoting a parasitic infection. So if there's swelling and redness on the external malleolus with no history of trauma, nothing, you need to think about parasitic infections and get this patient tested. And then if you guys ask me the question tomorrow about what would we do for a parasitic infection, I can give you the answer. UB60. Behind the ankle joint in the depression between the prominence of the lateral malleolus and the Achilles tendon. This is the fire and the river point. It clears heat, lowers yang, pacifies winds, leads down excess, activates the entire UB channel, alleviates pain, relaxes sinews and strengthens the lumbar spine, and it promotes labor. This is such an important point. It's roughly about the size of a nickel, and so it has a lot more functionality. So it clears heat and lowers yang. That's anything about liver yang rising to the head or that yang coming up to the head and causing headaches. We need to clear heat and lower yang. This is one of those points. It does that. And that's the fire point aspect of this. Pacifies wind and leads down excess. Again, that's the nature of a fire point or a river point. Activates the entire UB point channel. Relaxes the sinews and strengthens the lumbar, and then finally promotes labor. There's a point, so usually UB60 is the one that promotes labor with difficult labor, but if there's a breach where the baby hasn't fully turned in the birth canal to be head down, that is UB67. For if it's a malposition of the baby in the birth canal, that's UB67. Promotes labor or difficult labor is UB60, which means they have a prolonged labor, or they've been in labor now for like 12 to 24 hours, 36 hours, and that baby needs to come out. You could just needle UB60 and boom. It's usually about 20 minutes after you needle this point that baby will be there. They're going to be delivered. UB61. 61 is 1.5 soon below or inferior to UB60 in the tender depression of the calcaneum. When you feel on the heel right there where the calcaneum is, you're going to feel a little pocket. And that's where you're needling into, this little depression in the bone. Relaxes the sinews, activates the channel, and alleviates pain. So we only really use, well, I don't say we only because that's incorrect. You would be using this for pain in the heel, bone spurs, anything like that. If you want to know how to actually treat a bone spur, ask me tomorrow in class. Muscular atrophy and weakness of the lower extremities. UB62. On the lateral side of the foot, approximately 0.5 soon inferior to the inferior border of the lateral malleolus in a depression posterior to the peroneal tendon, right? It's a mirror image of kidney 6. So what I like to do is I like to put my hand on the sole of the foot and begin to kind of rotate that ankle joint to see if how much space I have in between that peroneal tendon, versus where the bone is. A little bit better of a placement. Pacifies interior wind and expels exterior wind. Calms the spirit and treats epilepsy. Benefits the head and eyes. Opens and regulates the yang motility vessel, which is one of our 8 extra channels. Activates the channel, alleviates pain. This point I use on everyone that has epilepsy, wind, any of that stuff. This is your go-to point for epilepsy. One of. Let me rephrase that. It's one of your go-to points for epilepsy, regardless of the type of epilepsy. There's a few. Okay? And whenever you see this term calms the spirit, really what that means is you're making that person shift from a sympathetic nervous response, which is a fight or flight, to a parasympathetic response, which is your rest. Excuse me. Wow, sorry about that. So, calming the spirit. What that means is you're manually shifting them from a sympathetic nervous response, which is fight or flight, to a parasympathetic nervous response, which is your rest repair cycle. Whenever you're stuck in sympathetic, pain is always magnified by 50 to 100%. So whenever you have a pain patient, you need to calm the spirit, calm the shin, to manually shift them from a sympathetic nervous response to a parasympathetic. Okay? We can talk more about that tomorrow in class. '63. On the lateral side of the foot, any depression posterior to the tuberosity of the 5th metatarsal bone. Pacifies wind, moderates acute conditions because that's the function of a sheet cleft point. All sheet cleft points moderate acute conditions. The yin sheet cleft points have an added function, and that is they also moderate acute conditions, but they also do something around blood, either stop bleeding, anything like that. So the yin have an added function of blood. Relaxes the sinews, activates channel, alleviates pain. Again, this is your go-to point for another go-to point for epilepsy. And infantile convulsion is relatively common in the United States, but that's something that I do not recommend that you treat. Okay? There's a liability issue with an infantile convulsion. 64. On the lateral side of the foot, any depression anterior and inferior to the tuberosity of the 5th metatarsal bone. Clears the head and eyes and eliminates wind, calms the spirit, relaxes the sinews, activates the channel, and alleviates pain. So we're missing alleviates pain there. This is the source point of the UB channel. And really what you're seeing is everything represented on that channel. So if it's a headache, neck rigidity, pain in the low back and thigh, and then finally the epilepsy. What's the functions of source points? UB65. On the lateral side of the foot, any depression posterior and inferior to the head of the 5th metatarsal bone. Clears the head and eyes, clears heat, dissipates swelling, activates the channel, and alleviates pain. So really this point is the shoe stream, but it's because it's a shoe stream, they have a better ability to clear heat, dissipate swelling. 66. On the lateral side of the foot, any depression anterior and inferior to the head of the 5th metatarsal bone. Clears the head, descends lung and stomach chi, or descends lung and stomach rebellious chi. And then finally our last point of the day, which is UB67. UB67 is on the dorsal aspect of the little toe at the junction of the lines drawing along the lateral border of the nail and the base of the nail, approximately 0.1 cun from the corner of the nail. Expels wind, clears the head and eyes, turns the fetus and facilitates labor. So this is that whole discussion. Whenever you have the baby that isn't turned all the way and they're kind of like laying sideways in the birth canal, that's called a difficult labor. So you could either needle the point, or you can burn 3 small cones or rice grain cones on this point. For me, if we burn the moxa, the baby will actually respond and turn usually within 2 to 3 minutes. And then no more difficult labor, boom, no need for a C-section. Okay? Or if there's retention of the placenta in the afterbirth, then you definitely want to needle it to make that body push out any leftover or retention of the afterbirth. Okay, so that concludes our lecture for today. Thank you very much. Please bring all your questions to class. I'll be happy to answer them. And then please also take a look at the reading, read the commentary. A lot of the questions can be answered if you read the commentary. But, you know, if you don't have time to read the commentary, just bring the questions. All right, I'll see you all tomorrow.